But there's another powerful influence on our climate that we have to take into account. Among the many gases that make up the air we breathe, there is one that is particularly important: carbon dioxide. It traps the sun's energy and so keeps the planet warm. Greenhouse gases, like carbon dioxide, act as a blanket around the Earth, preventing the sun's energy from reflecting back into space. It's called the greenhouse effect, and it's prevented the planet from freezing since the Earth began. Without it, the global temperature would be minus 19 degrees Celsius. On the face of it, carbon dioxide seems to be a good thing. It stops our planet from freezing and so sustains life on Earth, and without it, no plant could grow because they need carbon to build their tissues. Leaves absorb the gas from the atmosphere through their pores. They then break down the carbon dioxide molecules, release the oxygen, and retain the carbon. Over hundreds of millions of years, the great forests took so much carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere that they reduced the greenhouse effect and cooled the planet down. When the trees died, they were buried, and over time crushed and compressed with the carbon still within them. In the ages that followed, these layers were slowly buried beneath the Earth's surface. At this open-cast coal mine in China, you can descend for 500 meters through layer upon layer of rock representing tens of millions of years. Right at the bottom lies a layer of what was once wood and leaves and is now coal and shale. When I was a boy in the 1930s, the carbon dioxide blanket was still below 300 parts per million. This year, the thickness reached 382, the highest figure for hundreds of thousands of years. Every year, the blanket is getting thicker. But how can we possibly know that carbon dioxide levels are higher now than they were thousands of years ago?
You can see the ice here is absolutely full of bubbles, and the bubbles were formed when the ice was formed. And of course the bubbles contain atmosphere, oxygen and carbon dioxide. If we want to understand the role of carbon dioxide as a thermal blanket over the Earth, we need to know about how carbon dioxide has changed, the concentrations have changed in the atmosphere over hundreds of thousands of years. An analysis of bubbles such as these in places like Antarctica and Greenland gives us that fantastic record.
These ice cores have been extracted from as much as 3 kilometers beneath the polar ice caps. And for Professor Marc Serres, each one provides a valuable source of information about a particular moment in the past.
Well, this particular chunk of ice is about 16,000 years old. It comes from the Greenland ice sheet. What we see here are layers of fossil snow. Every year on the top of Greenland there's an accumulation of snow, and this gets compacted year through year, layer after layer of snow, eventually to form these layers of ice. And it's within these layers of ice that we can tell all kinds of things about the Earth's past. What we find today is that the carbon dioxide concentrations in the atmosphere are higher than anything we've seen in the past 600,000 years. It's telling us that human activities are having a strong impact on the climate system. If we measure this in parts per million of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, what we call the pre-industrial level, before humans were starting to have an impact, was around 270, 280 parts per million. What we see now, the most recent records today are telling us that it's up to about 380 parts per million. So you can see that today's levels are far beyond anything that we've seen in the past. If you talked to me 5 years ago, I would have been kind of a fence sitter on this whole idea of greenhouse gases involved in climate change. No more. The changes that we've seen seem to be much too strong, much too radical to be just simply explained by natural climate cycles. What we're seeing now is the impact of humans. Humans are starting to change the climate itself. That's what we're seeing today.